Once upon a time, there lived a king called Eze or Kachamara Onyeagwalam. He was a very wicked and stubborn king who never listens to counsel or advice. He would tax his subjects to their last penny and made his soldiers his tax collector. He also gave them instructions to collect daily tax from the traders by any means necessary. Not long after, he opened his own tax collecting stall in the market where all traders come to pay their tax. It was unheard of, and his subjects were appalled. Soon after, he expanded his tax collecting store, which displayed the taxes collected from the traders clearly for the traders to see. While Eze Onyeagwalam was busy collecting these taxes from his subjects, he didn't care about the plight of his people. Poverty swept through the land. Families moved out of their homes since they could no longer afford to live in comfortable homes. They moved to dilapidated huts. Most children dropped out of school as their parents could no longer afford to send them and just stayed at home doing nothing. Little children weren't left out. They had no strength to play because most of them ate just once in 2 days. The atmosphere in the village was sad and gloomy. Meanwhile, Eze Onyeagwalam was living large and buying gold jewelries and expensive clothing. He was eating to his satisfaction. His wife tried to talk to him, but he warned her to never meddle in his affairs. His prime minister also warned him, but he threatened him and shouted at him. Due to the fact that Eze Onyeagwalam never listens to advice, everyone stopped giving them and just looked at him while he carried out all his actions. One day, Eze Onyeagwalam received news that the League of Kings were coming to his village. The League of Kings was an alliance created by 4 of the biggest kingdoms around. They came together every 7 years to help any small village around them. As soon as Eze Onyeagwalam received the letter, he introduced bigger taxes on his people and collected the money to beautify his palace. The D-Day arrived and the kings decided to walk through the village before going to the palace. As they walked, they observed the faces of the people and took mental notes. The kings noticed that the villagers were poor and had a hopeless and sad look on their faces. They finally arrived at the palace and noticed how expensive Eze Onyeagwalam's palace was in contrast to the living conditions of his people. They also noticed a smear on his leg that was emanating a very foul smell. They pointed it out to him, and to his dismay, when he touched it, he discovered that it was poop. The kings kept quiet, exchanged pleasantry with him, and left. After they left, Eze Onyeagwalam began to quarrel with his prime minister for not telling him of the smell on his leg. He had gone to the bathroom before the dignitaries arrived. The prime minister responded and told him that he never listens to anyone's advice, so they left him and just looked on at whatever he did. Eze Onyeagwalam became ashamed and spent most of his days indoors. The kings also replied him, telling him that they would not provide a penny to a tyrant, and told him that the living condition of his people do not match how glorious and beautiful his palace was. That being called to be a king is not for you to glory yourself or place yourself above your people. And they also stated that they didn't trust his ability to use the money that would be given to him to help his people. Eze Onyeagwalam felt devastated and disgraced and remorsefully turned over a new leaf. The lesson to be learned from this story is we should always be considerate wherever we find ourselves. We should never misuse power just because the other person is beneath us, and we should always listen to advice and counsel, because even the Bible says, in the multitude of counselors there is safety.